Having me here. Good evening, everyone. My name is Pavi Ramamurthy. I'm the CISO at Upstart. Disclaimer, I didn't know that this was a 1 hour long talk, so I don't think that I have material to present for 1 hour, but we can make this a discussion. So appreciate if you could all ask your questions directly to Ed and we can address that. A little bit of background about myself. I've been in the Bay Area for about 27 years, and about 26 of those have been in the tech sector. So I was a hardcore programmer, developer for the first 10 years of my career, and then the last 15 years have been in security. So some of my earlier companies have been with like 3Com, VMware, LinkedIn, and so I've been with Upstart now for over a year as their CISO responsible for all aspects of security. So this presentation is all my personal lessons learned, and it's not the opinion of Upstart. So I want to put that out front. And this is also my 1 year experience dealing with customers, auditors, bank partners, and the board. So just to give you some context on the presentation, Upstart is a personal lending platform. So for potential borrowers who would like to borrow money from Upstart, they log into the platform and they can choose, they answer some questions, and then they are given a credit risk score. Either Upstart will choose to give a personal loan to them through a bank, or call what is a referral, and then they would be referred to a partner bank. So that's the context behind Upstart, and so that will be apparent when you see some of these slides on why not an end customer, and why a specific bank partner, and why a regulatory requirement, and things like that. So let me go ahead and share my screen, and I will now go into presentation mode, and hopefully you will be able to see that as well. No, I'm just going to present. Okay. Are you able to see the presentation? Yes? Thumbs up? Yeah. Okay, cool. All right. So in my last 7-8 years, close to 10 years of being in a management position in security, for my own leverage and experience, I did not find any guidance on how to effectively present a cybersecurity posture to my team, management, the audit committee, and the board. So in the last year, I've put together some lessons learned, and there are three main stakeholders in an effective, in an organization's effective cybersecurity posture, right? The team, your own team is not in here, but that's implied. Your management team is your biggest supporter and stakeholder, and then you have your board, risk committee, audit committee, however you present, and then you have your customers, bank partners, in our case, stakeholders, right? So these are the three main critical aspects of presenting your organization security posture. So if you took the first one, which is presenting to your board and audit committee, right? So here are some of the questions that I asked myself before I presented to them, right? Who are the board members? So do your research, and that kind of helps you gauge the level of technical depth that you want to go into. And then if you can find a champion in your board of directors, definitely do ask for that, because they are going to help you tailor your presentation, give you talking points and whatnot, right? Figure out what your board cares about. So what do you want to address? And then what kind of alignment are you seeking from them? For different organizations, you may require a formal approval from your board of directors on your security roadmap. So it's different for different organizations. So figure out what alignment it is that you need from your board. What should the slide deck contain, right? And then what is your message to the board? This is an opportunity for you. You get to speak to the board maybe at best once a year, and at best for 15 minutes, and you have their attention for the first 5 maybe, right? So what do you want them to take away? What message do you want to give to your board, and how do you capitalize on that opportunity? How do you present your organization's security posture effectively, succinctly in those first 5 minutes that they can take away with them? And then homework would be, if you can, research what initiatives your competitors or your peers are focusing on. So these are the kind of the questions that I asked myself before I even went ahead with a slide deck for the board, right? So these are some of the slide suggestions. The first thing, your board of directors may change. People may not have been in full attendance, so it's always good to capture your team's vision and mission statement. This is not your organization's vision and mission statement. This is rather your own security team's vision statement. For example, for me at Upstart, the organization statement is enabling effortless credit, right? For us, it is being securing the future of online lending, for example. So you should sit down with the team to derive your vision and mission statement that is applicable for you. So that would be slide 1, which is always, it's the same slide that they see every year, and they know that you have a purpose, there is possibly a true north that you're working towards, and they know that there is a focused program in place. Almost the very first thing you want to cover is for the time period, if it's an annual time period, then you want to cover the entire year, right? Have there been any major security incidents or events? So if so, what did that mean in terms of impact? What was the notification? Obviously, this is not the first time they're going to hear about it, because if your organization did have a major security incident, you would have presented to the board almost immediately, right? But this is more of a retrospect saying, hey, what happened in the last year? You can also cover if any industry specific events, security events affected your org. Case in point, the FireEye breach, the SolarWinds breach. Hey, was the company a vendor, or did a company leverage FireEye services? Where we affected and whatnot. So that's a good slide at the start to present. And then almost immediately you want to go into current cybersecurity risks to your organization. So this derives directly from the risk assessment that your team would have done over the last year, whether it's an annual risk assessment, whether it's a live dynamic risk assessment that you keep updated, doesn't matter. But almost always the board wants to know, hey, head of security or CISO, what keeps you up at night? What are the risks that you think are relevant to your organization? How worried should we, the board members, be, right? So again, you are not going to go into deep technical details here. So you can say that, hey, our endpoint, for example, we perceive a major risk to our endpoint. The risk is high because we don't have solutions in place, but here is an action plan towards it. So highlighting a risk alone is not enough. You want to highlight what remediation projects are in play, and what is the ETA when you think that this risk will get mitigated, right? So this is pretty very interesting to the board, because this is how they determine is the security team always looking at it from a risk perspective? Is their strategy and roadmap aligned to the current risks, and are they providing us the right visibility? Slides 4 and 5 talk about highlights since the last time you spoke to the board. Just going back to slide 3, if this is the first time that you are presenting your risk posture, you can indicate that it's a baseline, right? So then from that point on, subsequent presentations to the board can say that, hey, in 2020, our overall risk was moderate. In 2021, it is at, the risk posture has improved and it's at a low. So how you want to present that? Slides 4 and 5 talk about significant highlights. Again, the board is very interested in phishing campaign, right? So these are things that I learned, that they want to know what your numbers are, right? So phishing campaign results are extremely interesting to them. A specific initiative that, let's say that you rolled out, with the endpoint example, let's say that you rolled out a malware solution to all endpoints. That's a significant initiative, and that you can show them that there is a impact to it, where you can show them data around malware that the solution has, has sufficiently blocked. Lowlights, if applicable, you can talk about a delayed rollout of the same, and that's also interesting to them. Key metrics, your organization, and when you develop your InfoSec program, you're also defining your KPIs, KRIs, right? Anything that is relevant to the board, which is, again, at a very high level. If you had security events, then the mean time to detect and the mean time to respond, highlighting your robust incident response process is a great thing for them to note. Comparison with peers, if you happen to have a BSIM kind of a thing, which is the maturity model, where you can say that, hey, in the fintech industry, for example, Upstart as a company is in the lower quadrant in security education and awareness, whereas our peers are doing much better. So that's something that is that's worthy of highlighting if you have that comparison. And then slide 6 would be your roadmap for the year, which makes sense if it's a calendar year. And if I'm presenting to the board this quarter, that's exactly what I would do, which is, hey, here is our roadmap for the year or for the next 6 months. And this is where you would see formal alignment and approval from the board saying, hey, is this in alignment? Can I get an approval on the security roadmap? Occasionally, you may get things like, hey, I want you to focus on introducing more security training to your teams, for example. So that would be a good point for discussion. Always focusing on the big and bold with your board and audit committee, and talking about how your security projects, keeping your risk posture in mind, is going to move the security needle forward quarter over quarter, is also a great input point for them. It's a great data point, so they will know that at some point, which is based on your security maturity, whether it's a year down the line or 2 years down the line, the organization is at a good enough security maturity posture that the board can say that there is no significant investment needed from a security solution point of view. Always then you close out with any follow-ups from the last time, and then you leave 5 minutes for questions. So you have about 10 minutes, um, if not 5, to go through all of this. So keep it very light. 7 slides is probably a bit too much, but condensing all of it also makes it very heavy on the eyes to read. So this is my suggestion for a board presentation on just the highlights that we think the audit committee or a risk committee or even the board of directors would be interested in to learn from what your team is doing from an infosec point of view. So I'm going to pause here. And Ed, are we taking questions at the end, or should we? There are 3 sections to it. There is the board, management, and customers. Should we just do questions just on the board so we can move along?
Sure. I don't have any just yet. But one question that I would have is, let's say you're not engaged with the board just yet.
Yes.
So how do you get that engagement? You reached out, figured out what the board is. How would you start that particular process?
So I would reach out, in my case, I would reach out to, so we have a separate compliance team because we are in the fintech space, so our compliance team is different. So our legal and compliance team and the management team, I would reach out to them and say that, hey, I've been here with Upstart now for a year. I would like to present to the board on the security posture, right? So you would proactively engage with your either your management team, your executive leadership team, or the people who normally present to the board and say that, hey, give me a slot in the upcoming board meeting, right? And it helps to set that agenda. And at best, if you get 15 minutes, then I would say that if you can get through 2 and 3, then it's still good.
Excellent. Um, just a reminder for those folks on the call, if you do have questions, please send them in chat and I will ask them. I don't have any additional questions at this time.
Okay, so we can keep going, and then you can interrupt me if you see a question. Okay, so board is the highest level. Now you're going to present to your management team, right? So what do you need to do? So you want to identify your stakeholders. Again, most of this, almost all of this, you're probably doing it, based on the culture of your organization. This is just like a cheat sheet. So I identified all my stakeholders at Upstart, right? So which is engineering, whether it's DevOps, operations. So you identify your stakeholders. The prep work for the meeting is very critical, and by prep work I mean that in in a management presentation, and I like to call them as QBRs, or quarterly business reviews, and I do one at the beginning of the following quarter as a look back at the previous quarter and then focusing on the current quarter. So the prep work becomes really important because you have all of these stakeholders in that meeting and you really do not want any surprises. So if you've done a business impact analysis, for example, if you've just run a business continuity, if you've rolled out your annual security awareness training and you know that IT is the biggest offender by not completing the training. For example, if you ran a phishing campaign and you know that a particular team, like the click-through rate for it was pretty high, you really are not going, you don't want to show those metrics in a QBR before engaging with your stakeholders. As long as you identify your stakeholders and you have a regular cadence with them. So we do that. So a week or 2 weeks before the QBR, if there's any significant metrics that we present, we always reach out to them first. We get alignment, and we say, heads up, this is coming in the QBR. So what does management care about, right? So there are some common themes here. Management cares about, hey, what are the risks to our organization? What should I, as the head of the organization, company, be worried about? What are the trends that we are seeing, for example? And then, the has the security needle moved? Has the risk posture improved, or has the security maturity improved, right? And then from your side, from the InfoSec side, here is your chance to get your budget asks, headcount asks. And this can change quarter over quarter, especially if you do yearly planning. Let's say that you've just uncovered a huge gap and you need $500,000 to invest in a security solution, or you need to staff up your SecOps teams. So that this is your chance to ask for those. And then what alignment do you seek from them, right? Any approvals, and we'll go into a specific example here, and what should the slide deck contain. So I have 2 slides here, and this is the first half of the slides, right? So you can see the common theme here, which is slide 1, your team's vision and mission statement. And my company has seen my vision and mission statement so much that now I don't even show it to them because it's in their face all the time, right? If this is the very first time that you're doing your QBR, it's very useful to give your management team an overview of your team and the pillars. So typically an InfoSec program, and each company does this differently. I have 3 pillars. A GRC, InfoSec GRC, which is the governance, risk, and compliance. I have an InfoSec engineering team, and then I have an InfoSec operations team. So I go through those 3 pillars, and I tell them what each pillar's function and responsibility are, and what are the deliverables. So that's a useful slide. But then if this is your second, third, or fourth QBR, or if you've done this enough times, slide 1 is not necessary. Slide 2 is a sample agenda. Again, if your CEO has to leave in the first 10 minutes of the meeting, whatever you want him or her to take away, what do you want them to take away, right? The executive summary, the year in retrospect, wherever applicable. So for us, it's a calendar year, so we'll do a year in retrospect. We'll do a look ahead for the current year. Our cybersecurity risk posture, which again is the common theme. The board wants to know about it, your management team wants to know about it. Accomplishments for the quarter that ended, so you could do both highlights and you could do lowlights. The current quarter big and bold, right? These are the initiatives that make a splash, that would make an impact, right? Follow-ups from the last quarter if they had asked a question, and then deep dives. This has been hugely successful for me, and not more than 2 per quarter, and we can look at an example. So your executive summary for slide 3 pretty much is the same from the executive summary in your board thing, which is, have there been any security events for the company? Have there been industry events that have affected the company? Even if there have not been any, if there have been any industry events, but it doesn't impact the company, it's still a very good it's an opportunity to educate your management team as to why your company is not affected. It could simply be that a ransomware attack is not applicable to your company because you had a security solution in place, right? So it's a good thing to highlight the positives of your security program. So that's slide 3. And then slides 4 and 5 talk about the same thing: current cybersecurity risk to your organization and the trend since the last presentation, right? So if you are following a risk assessment framework, and if you're highlighting subdomains that are at risk, you can showcase. For example, you can say that IT infrastructure, the risk level was high last time, and the risk level this quarter is moderate, for example. So that's a good thing for them to see the trend, whether it's gone up or down, because you can discover more risks. You could have mitigated a significant number of risks, and they know that there is definite progress. So this slide is very relevant to it should be covered within the first 10 to 15 minutes, so that if the majority of your group drops off the call, you at least have them walk away with, okay, I know that there were 2 security events or 0 security events. I know that here's the risk to our organization. This is the second part of it, right? Again, this is from my most recent QBR, tweaking and fine-tuning the last year's QBRs to arrive at what is the most effective way for me to take the message to my team and still have them engaged and ask us the right questions. The security maturity scorecard, and we follow the CMM model, the capability maturity model. There is a capability maturity, cybersecurity capability maturity model, which is also useful. And then showing progress quarter over quarter with a defined goalpost, that's useful. For example, you may say that endpoint detection and response, we are not even targeting maturity 5, we will stop at maturity 4. So that's a good thing for the company to know that that's our goalpost. So similarly, the risk domains and the security maturity domains, the more closely aligned they are, the better, the easier it is for them to wrap their heads around what your program is about, right? So the asks for headcount and budget and whatnot. So I call that the people, process, technology, right? Focus on key investments in security solutions. If there is a solution that you think is going to be super impactful to the company, it's a good place for you to educate your management team about the key investments. If there is a talent gap and you have plans to address them, that's also a good data point for them to have. And then the program and the process maturity on documentation, process improvements, process automation, what I call the in a craftsmanship, right? So that is also pretty relevant here. Slides 9 to 10 are more tactical. They are highlights from last quarter, focus in the current quarter, and then your kudos are asks of stakeholders. From InfoSec, we don't deploy product features, right? So the success of an InfoSec team largely in part depends on the relationship that you build with your stakeholders, the constant communication channels that you have built over a period of time, the prep work that goes into it, which is engaging with them a month before their quarter starts, so that they can factor in your security initiatives in their own roadmap. They all look like they are like no brainers, but oftentimes that's the one that is the most challenging, right? Like, how do you influence without authority all your stakeholder teams to walk with you alongside and still work on all of the security initiatives that makes the organization's posture pretty robust. So acknowledging those stakeholders is also critical than just asking them to do something. So slides 11 to 14 are like the deep dives, right? So you can see that not more than 15 slides or so, because this is a significant amount of talking that's going on. You pause for questions, and here is your chance to get all of your stakeholders on that same platform, seeking alignment and discussing implications to the company and whatnot. So let's take the second example, right? Solution which may have a cultural or a privacy impact. Classic example is if your organization has been around for a few years and you had no MDM in place, and now you want to roll out an MDM. So things that worked a certain way before, you're going to undo all of those things, right? And this is your opportunity to highlight to your management team the risks in the old approach, the risks that you're mitigating in your current approach, and how you're not wielding security with a stick, but you are considering cultural impact to the organization, privacy impact, and you're able to articulate all of those. So I tend to have 1 or 2 deep dives in my QBRs, and that's not more than 5 or 10 minutes. Usually it's either seeking alignment or explaining something that's probably either invasive or controversial, and having that open discussion so that management team has an opportunity to ask us these questions. So that's it on the management presentation. Now we have a bank partner or customer one, which is pretty short. So anything so far?
Yes, several questions now actually have come up. Bill asks, if you report to the CIO, how does that impact your strategy of presenting to the board? And have you ever been prevented from presenting because of your CIO?
That's a trick question. That's a very I have to be very careful answering that question. So I report in my previous company, I reported up to the CFO, and so did not have an opportunity to present to the board directly. And then it's the reporting structure, which is like highly debatable, which is who should the CISO report to. So in my current position, I report up to the engineer, up to engineering, and it's almost, I mean, it's still a completely autonomous function, security. So so here's the thing, right? If you have management, I don't think it matters if it's a CIO, CFO, or engineering. I really think that, and I genuinely believe that the management alignment and buy-in to your security initiatives is almost or single-handedly the most important factor for you and your team to be successful. If management does not believe that security should be ingested from early on in the process and do not consider it as an appendage, I think that any security program would be successful.
Okay. Dick asks, do you have do you have InfoSec team members embedded with product management or development teams? Being in the development side, it seems
Yes, yes, we do.
relevant.
Yes, we do. Definitely. So we are embedded with product management to for launch reviews to get ahead on product features. So we kind of determine when security reviews are needed by being in close contact with the product management teams and in their team meetings and weekly meetings and whatnot. And then associated with each of the product managers, we work directly with engineering to understand architecture, security architecture, schedule, whether it's an in-depth security review, internal pen test and external pen test, and we are involved in the go no go for each of those product launches.
Okay, and one more question that we have. Colin asks, board members sometimes want to know what other of their like companies are doing for these issues. Do you address a competitive analysis of what your industry standard is?
That would be great. I don't have one for my company, and I was alluding to BSIM, which is now I think headed by Synopsys. That's a building security and maturity model, which is not a prescriptive analysis, but it does tell you at the very high level security initiatives that your infosec organization does well, doesn't do well, or not it does well, and it will highlight areas where other peers do a much better job, and that's a great kind of a benchmark for you to present that. But I don't have that in my current company yet.
Okay, thank you.
Please do also let me know if I'm answering the questions and if I understood your questions correctly as well. Okay, should we move on? Yeah, okay. Okay, so the last one, so in your triad is you're presenting to your customers and your partners, right? This could be anyone, right? So for me specifically, for my company, these are bank partners, right? So for us, I present to them almost on a biannual or sometimes even quarterly basis, just giving them some of the high level updates of our program, and it accomplishes almost all of these things, right? Which is a constant presence in front of our customers and partners. Definitely gives them the reassurance that security is being prioritized and security is being transparent and in there, and they are able to reach out at any given point of time. What this does is definitely establishes the trust and the brand reputation with the company, and that open lines of communication has proven to me in the last year that if I had to make a quick update or reach out, it was really, really easy given that lines of communication was already established and that relationship was established. It was very easy to reach out quickly to either provide an update or get an update from our partners. They also want to know, bank partners want to know what your responsiveness is. Again, mean time to detect, mean time to respond. When did you find out? It's very crucial for the InfoSec team to review contractual language that's in place with your customers and pull that matrix or spreadsheet and write that up saying, hey, which of my customers have asked for an annual pen test? Which ones of my customers have asked for a business impact analysis? Who is asking for a risk assessment? How often do they need it, right? Rather than relying on your customer success team, it's very crucial to understand contractual language in your partner contracts or in your customer contracts to yourself derive that matrix or spreadsheet on what the security requirements that the company has signed your team up for is again very critical. And then having that communication saying, hey, customer A we noticed that you have this. So here is us proactively giving you these pen test reports, for example, right? Almost uh, whether you're a small company like Upstart, or whether you are a big company like LinkedIn, customers and partners always believe in external validation, like a third party telling them or reassuring them what the posture is, rather than you telling them that, hey, we security test all our features, right? So having that process, again, all of this, you can thread all of these initiatives and your roadmap to a bigger narrative, right? If you can give them that external validation, you are increasing your SDLC footprint, which is a great thing. You are figuring out gaps in your talent, and you're hiring the right talent. If your external pen testers are finding a lot more issues than your internal team is, so all of this is a feedback loop, right? So these are the questions that I asked, and this is the slide deck that I came up with. This is a very short one, right? It's only 5 slides. And because you're presenting to your customers and partners, you're not going into enormous detail, right? So sample agenda will be an overview, executive summary, and roadmap. And in the overview, you can go over your program, because partners and customers want to know how your program is structured. And so you can go over your program pillars and the team. Executive summary still stays the same. Hey, were there any security events? And then the same thing, perceived risks to the organization, and then security awareness initiatives. Now, as a head of security, or as a person who's presenting this to your partners, it's very important to that, which is why it is very important to understand if any security events had occurred, and if it affected only a particular customer and not the other. So here is an area where you would almost tailor this to each customer presentation that you're making, right? And then slides 4 to 5 is the sales enablement, right? Compliance certification. Hey, we have a SOC 1, we have all of these security white papers, and we've just developed an external security presence where you can go in and read about, how secure our product is. We have our InfoSec policies, which are tailored to the NIST standard. Things like that are music to our customers' ears, because they have buzzwords. They can map all of this, and then if you're talking to the InfoSec team, then they can understand that you have picked the right frameworks and you have the right set of responses to them. Customer assurance collateral is also a very important thing. So this is us proactively presenting to the customer rather than reactively responding to a questionnaire, right? So over a period of time, I've built this customer collateral, whether it is with this company or with previous companies like LinkedIn. So the more information that you are willing to provide on, like, the SIG, the cake, your summary document on your policies, your white papers, and your certifications, the more reassured the customer is, without them having to re-engage with us asking for a 500 questionnaire, right? So this definitely serves the purpose of establishing that the trust, the reassurance. And then specific to your industry, if you have a specific regulation, it would definitely be good to talk about that, and what measures you're taking to either conform to the regulations, any attestations that you could provide. Those are important as well. So this is the customer side or the partner side of things. Let's see. So that's the presentation, but here are the common themes, right? The common themes across all those 3 sections were risks. Hey, what are the risks to your company? Did any security events occur? What are you doing about it? So the reassurance, that's the common theme. Engaging the audience, right? No more than 10 slides. Keep it light. Don't, again, no-brainer tips, which is, if it's text heavy, they're going to be reading that, then paying attention to you. And then know your audience, which this is critical, right? Which is, if your board members are super technical, then it may make sense to pick a topic or two to delve into technical depth, and then otherwise you want to focus on the high level. Follow-up is also crucial, which is timely response to questions. If they have a board member has a follow-up question, or a partner, or even your management team, and then definitely give them supporting documents that you are comfortable sharing. Consistency, right? I like to call this the shampoo effect, right? Rinse and repeat always. So it's, that this is how Pavi presents her QBR. So hey, if I can attend the first 10 minutes, I know that I can get the meat of the presentation. So that's a good thing. Consistency and establishing that is good. This is my suggested cadence, right? If you get more than 15 minutes, then I'm envious of you with the audit committee, but that's the best you're going to get. With my management team, I have a 1 hour slot, which almost every time runs over, and that's mainly because of the deep dives more than anything. So this has happened. I'm pretty successful with the management team, and partners and customers also pretty successful. It's about 30 to 45 minutes, and also on demand if they have a couple of questions, or if they want to talk about an industry event, and so that happens more often. But this one is very critical, because if you have done an effective presentation to your management team, and if they believe in your security vision, then it's almost implied that you will have that opportunity to present to the board. So that's so. Ed, I don't know who asked that question first, which is how do you engage? You asked a question, Ed. How do you engage the board? That is another way to engage the board. I think that's about it.
So I have another question. You mentioned going through your contracts and being proactive on this customer wants these requirements. These guys need to meet the, say, for SOC 2, or these guys need an ISO certification. Those guys need quarterly pen tests or annual pen tests and that sort of thing. How do you manage that with, say, a large customer base? What are some of the processes and things you would do to go review those contracts? Do you go read all? Say you had 1,000 customers, would you go read 1,000 contracts, or?
I wouldn't, but I would tap into your strategic sourcing team, right? Or I would tap into your well-established, whether it's in Zen GRC or whatnot, that those are fields that you can derive, right? So that's what I would do. But fortunately, I don't have a huge customer base, so it's easy for me to go read all the contracts. At LinkedIn, we did have thousands of customers, right, on the enterprise side, and that was more reactive, which was never pleasant, right? So this is, at least going forward, you can give your because you are reviewing the security language. The moment it deviates from the norm, your strategic sourcing team is firing off that contract to you for review, right? So that's a good start, right? You can always start there. And this is something that either needs a product solution, or more hands on deck, or simply your strategic sourcing team as they are, or your legal team even, as they just flag those for you. Again, if you keep the templates consistent, and customers don't mandate that it has to be on their paper, or it becomes much easier.